Okay, so we have quite a lot to cover. I'll show you how I've broken this down, but main focus tonight or today is basically focusing on the systemic and the sustainable aspect of development in Cyprus, and we'll see why those are important. Let's see if this works. Does this work? Okay, so
You can turn your laptop
this way.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Thank you. Okay, so here we go. So we're looking at a sustainable perspective to systemic perspective to sustainable development in Cyprus. So the key words again are systemic and sustainable. Lots of S's in it. So what we'll cover in the next hour or so. First, we're going to define what sustainability is, and then we're going to go into looking at what the current health of the planet is. Then we're going to focus on Cyprus itself and what the dynamics are happening on the island. See how we can shift the paradigm of how we work, how we approach what we do in life, in business, especially with the environment. Then we'll look at solutions that can be implemented, proposal plan, and then the action is basically a discussion here, any ideas to exchange, and so forth. So it's actually going to come out of the team building and team ideas naturally. So what does sustainability mean to you? Anyone?
With regards to the environment in particular? Or?
Well, sustainable, let's say we're looking at sustainable island, for example. What does that mean?
Using systems and implementing production systems in particular that are environmentally friendly.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Anyone? No.
A plan aiming at making something last in
Okay.
the long run.
So,
Keep it going.
right. Okay,
Never
very
ending.
good. Brilliant.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, brilliant. Anyone else?
If we speak about economic sustainability, usually it's about to be able to sustain your business in a long period, but if we speak about environmental sustainability, it is to have economic activity without reducing and take off the environment, materials and other, without being able to do it in the long run.
Right. So, yeah, thank you.
For me, is it to more think in cycles, for example, in cradle to cradle, and not to have a product and then to waste it, to bring it to the landfill,
Right.
to reuse it, to upcycle it,
Right.
so that we can have the exact new product out of it.
Brilliant. Okay, so you're keeping things in cycles, circular economy, cradle to cradle. Brilliant. Anyone else? Okay, so what we heard, actually, we heard the words environment and also economy, right? So we have these two strong emphasis on what sustainability is. Is everything good?
Not sharp, but not sharp.
Okay. Okay, so Gunter Pauli is one of my mentors. If you haven't heard of him, he's like the epitome of sustainability. He talks about the blue economy, and he quotes, it's to develop our human economies in harmony with nature. So we have our economies, but we also have to consider the natural aspect of the nature, so that the economy does not destroy nature. Obviously, nature sustains life, which is what we want to do. So I'd suggest for sustainable Cyprus, we can term it this way. Consists of systemic, multifunctional, interconnected solutions that are in harmony with the environment and the economy. So, does everyone agree with that? Sounds like a good plan, sort of thing. Okay, we can always work on that another time, but as a basis, I'm recommending this. So we've defined sustainability. Let's have a look at the planet itself at the moment.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Okay, so this is basically the Stockholm Resilience Centre have basically worked with scientists for the last 2 decades or so, gathering data to figure out what we're doing with the planet And as we're having an impact, we've entered the Anthropocene, should we say, which is basically we've moved into an era right now that human activity is actually influencing planetary function. Until maybe the 1500s, maybe the 1700s, debatable. Definitely after World War II, we've hit this era, this new era. Because after World War II, there was a huge rise in industry and chemical agriculture and everything. What they've identified were basically 9 different categories. One is a novel which is not yet quantified because these are like the combined effect of these guys, what they would happen. So this they can't really identify yet. What we have is climate change. This is an old, it's a 2015 chart. It now has exceeded, this is the 350 ppm, now it's at 450, so we have exceeded on climate change. We've lost over 50% of our biodiversity on the planet, so we've exceeded it there. And nitrogen and phosphorus, this is primarily modern agriculture. We've exceeded our levels of sustainability there. So what this indicates is when we pass this barrier, right, basically we're stepping into an unknown state. We don't know what the consequences are. If we keep it below here, like we had the ozone in the 80s was a big 80s, 90s and 2000s was big, but we've managed to, due to changes, managed to bring it down within the limits. That's fantastic, we need to keep an eye on that. But we're still being pressured on different avenues at the moment. The other aspect to look at is we have a whole bunch of, there's just obviously a snippet of what's going on, but we're now in a green transition worldwide where we have a massive social divide between wealth and not so wealthy. Our biodiversity loss. Basically 93% of our seed diversity has been lost in the last 80 years. So that's a huge amount, primarily in the food sector. Food productivity, we're having an increase of 1 to 2% per year with geoengineering, not geoengineering, but GMO and so forth, but we're pushing 9 to 10 billion in mid-century. We've got the climate change, melting ice caps and so forth. Water is life. We have less than 1% of fresh water on Earth that we can access to drink. We've got ocean acidification, which is basically a rise in acidity, which comes from climate change. The more CO2 we pump out into the atmosphere, 50 times more of it gets sunk in the ocean. So it's now rising the acidity of the ocean, which now causes the shellfish not to be able to create their shells, and they're part of the food chain at the very basic level. Population increase, Africa continent about 2.4 billion by 2050. So we're doubling our population on the Earth about 1 billion every 10 to 12 years. And of course economics is another pressure. So that's basically China coming up being a global power, which means in the last 500 years it will not be governed by the Western thinking. So all of these are going on, we've got lots more going on, but there's just some things to consider. So we've looked at the planet. Let's look at Cyprus now. Let's see what's going on here. So again, we're looking at the economic and the environmental factors on Cyprus. So just as a snippet again, this is obviously not a complete outline, but these are pressing issues. Our ability to capture water, so we do have dams, but that's not a solution in a sense where we're not capturing water where it falls, but we're actually letting it run off, picking up soil, which is important for growing food. So our design of water capture is not efficient at the moment. Water management, again, we're basically pumping out more water than we have in our underground aquifers. So that means over time we're going to deplete our aquifers. And we also have a great deal of evapotranspiration. Soil erosion, that comes obviously from agricultural practices and incentives that cause us to leave our, basically we're incentivizing tilling of land, and the type of agricultural practices are actually detrimental to the health of the soil, which therefore degrades the soil, which therefore runs off with the water. So we have a lot of erosion, we have our agricultural practices, modern agriculture is a very questionable, it's definitely not sustainable, there's no question about that. And then our food production, every industry in Cyprus is losing, aside from the fishery sector. They're actually the ones gaining traction. And as it stands at the moment, according to experts, we're going to be looking, if we continue on this trend, we're going to be looking like Syria and Lebanon in the next 25 years. So we really need to press ahead with changing the way we do things. Economic challenges, there's a lot, I just mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty. We've got world events, we've got the political, the Cyprus problem, we've got the natural gas issue, we've got construction, which is very good now, but then after this, shall we say, this boom, what will happen? We've also got regional issues, so tourism is up, but we also still have a war about 60 miles from here. We've got brain drain. This has been draining us for a long, long time. We need to keep our knowledge in Cyprus. We really need to keep the experts here and grow them. And then of course the agriculture we mentioned before. Declining in GDP. So the vision, as we stated before, and basically the economics and the environment are the guiding principles of our design of a sustainable system. So we need to keep both the environment but also the economics very much in the foreground when we're looking at this. So let's see at the paradigm shift. How do we view the environment? What do we need to see differently about the environment so we can actually act on it? So our primary priority is capturing water on the island, or anywhere in the world actually. We have here a water cycle, it's about 10 stages. The importance of this cannot be underestimated, because even though we're running after the CO2, the actual heating up of the earth is primarily from this cycle. Because we're cutting down our forests, we're using modern agriculture, causing us not to hold the water on the land, and therefore the land gets hotter, the forests don't hold any water anymore, obviously, because they're cut down. So what happens is we're really, the things that actually function to cool the planet, like clouds, like forests, like greenery, we're actually destroying all of those, so obviously our planet is heating. Yes, we do need to cut down on the CO2, it's about a 4% impact on the dynamics of the planet, but it's not our primary goal. Our goal is really to look after our water cycle, which we can do very well in Cyprus because we're a nice small island and there's a lot of opportunity. So as a comparison, just as you realise that the difference, if this is more or less what Cyprus is, very arid, we want to look like, we want to sort of tend to push it onto this side. So on land that is open, that's clear cut, that doesn't have any forest, this could also be a city, it could be cement, it could be whatever. You have, basically you feel the heat, about 60–70% of that heat that's there, because it's not leaving, and you have very little evapotranspiration. So evaporation, which is water changing state from liquid to gas, needs a lot of energy, right? So as things evaporate, like if you have a balcony, it's really hot. If you throw some water on it, it'll start to cool down very quickly because of the evaporation. So when we shift from this to this, aside from the heat staying in the lower atmosphere, the evaporation allows the water to go higher and increase the water cycle, and cools the land as well, of course. So these are things to keep in mind, like when we're redesigning, when we're looking for sustainability in Cyprus or anywhere in the world, it's not a one direction. So it can be involved in agriculture, it could be in technology, it could be in the way we build things, it could be pretty much in every direction. It is in actually every direction. So this is a photo in the Czech Republic. And what they did is they did a scan on this, infrared scan. So if we take our attention to a rooftop, the trees, and this is obviously the upper layer, the hot layer, shall we say, and then the pavement here. So if we actually look at this through infrared, what we're finding is massive heat sinks here, right? And then the tree, if you look at the color code, whether it's in the shade or in the sun, it's practically the same temperature. This is because of the evaporation, yeah? So evapotranspiration. So the more the more we obviously cover things with green, obviously everything's going to be cooler. But if you can imagine these temperatures to cool these buildings, if there's a 39-degree temperature outside, you're going to need a lot more air conditioning to cool your buildings, especially if they're not insulated. So everything plays an effect. Everything is actually integrated together. So these type of principles, again, we can use to redesign our island. Also, Cyprus itself, if you look at this picture, is actually a heat sink. As it is, the aridness that it has on it right now, you can see the clouds are coming, but then they're separating around it because this is so hot that it's pushing up, the heat sits on the island and it pushes the cooler air around the island. So as an island itself, we're actually a heat sink, we're actually really hot, which we could change. So the paradigm shift that we want to look at is water capture. So slow down the surface water, sink it as much as possible into the ground. Right now we're looking at rainwater more of an inconvenience. We want to get it out of the city or whatnot. Sealed soil has no impact, so basically if we have dry soils, if we have modern agriculture which leaves no biology in the soil, or very little, the soil gets hard, it gets hot, and obviously the rain can't penetrate that as easy. And then we're relying on the water experts to be responsible for how to manage what we have left over. Whereas if we go to the new paradigm where we're looking at not only where